All right, super excited to welcome this next guy in. You know him from the NFL Network, there's many shows. You know him from his Bears podcast. You know him from the After Hour with Jim Rome, of course. He also does stand-up comedian. He's also a stand-up comedian, and he once jammed with the legendary Lloyd Grant, who was the original guitar player who played the lead on the original Metallica Hit the Light song that was on the original Metal Massacre. Adam Rank, how are you, sir?
Oh, you know what? What a great introduction. Thank you so much about that. I don't want to go too much into the Lloyd Grant story because you've told it enough to where I sound really cool. Wasn't as cool as that sounds, but it was. I knew what I was doing, and yeah, I will use that as one of my credits.
Hey, look, if you're on stage with Lloyd Grant, there's that's a legendary status right then and there. So for those of you that know Lloyd. So to give everybody some context here, because you might not all know. So Adam does, as I mentioned, the After Hour with Jim Rome. And part of that, Adam does something called Ranks, where he has his top 5 favorite things or various things, sports, music, public culture, the whole thing. So one of them, Adam goes, here's my top 5 Ozzy Osbourne songs. Now, to be honest, I was a little bit like, uh-oh. We're going to get No More Tears and Crazy Train and, whatever. But Adam, to his credit, did a phenomenal top 5.
Oh.
And included at number 3, my personal favorite Ozzy Osbourne song. And I'll get into this in a minute, why I think it's important. The Great Bark at the Moon. Where did that song come from? And why did you pick that at number 3 on your list?
I was thinking about that too. My age... And obviously, for many people, you get locked into Ozzy Osbourne through Crazy Train. And I think with a lot of artists, you always have to have a proof of concept of, I will like this band, not just this one song, I will like this band. And this was right around the time Bark at the Moon came out. And amazing, amazing song, great video. Obviously one of the early pioneers of using video as a medium. Like when you think of Crazy Train, like obviously the video for Crazy Train's a little bit off because Randy Rhoads has passed away and they've got they try to, but like Bark at the Moon is one where you're like, it's not Thriller, but you can tell they were putting in some production to it, which also led to it. But like the guitar part of it is awesome. And forgive me, I'm one of those people who knows enough about enough things that I can hang on in any conversation. But then when I get with the hardcores, they're like, oh, you're an idiot. No, it wasn't Jake E. Lee. It was, so I don't remember if he was the guitarist on that song.
No, it was absolutely Jake E. Lee.
Oh, thank God. Thank you. But yeah, like Jake E. Lee, like really great guitarist, like really good. And I thought that everything about that song, that was one that people were like number 3. And you're like you said, everybody wants...
The metalheads know that that's important. And I'll give you the reason why in a second, but I'll let you finish your thought.
No, but it was really one of those things where you're like, I like Ozzy. Like this is, okay, I'm an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Now, obviously there's a lot of other ones, Mr. Crawley and so many great songs. And so I remember Bark at the Moon and that album coming out. And I think if that was the tour where Motley Crue was supporting them, that was the one where you're like, it cemented me as an Ozzy Osbourne person. But yeah, just a great song.
Yeah, phenomenal. By the way, I have a Jake E. Lee story for you that I'll tell you after we do the podcast.
Okay.
It's a good story, though. It's a good story. He's a great guy, and I'm happy that he came back and did Back to the Beginning. That was awesome. He's an old friend of mine. But this song to me, so of course we know, Ozzy left Sabbath and he was a mess and he came back and nobody expected he was ever going to have any sort of solo career. It kind of shocked everybody. And then of course he gets Randy Rhoads and he's these first 2 iconic records, right? So amazing. We're all happy for Ozzy. Then the horrible thing with Randy happens. And then you don't really know what's going to happen. And a lot of us were, okay, now what? Like, he's not going to find 2 amazing guitar players in a row. And let alone, can he continue to make music at that level? Was this all Randy that was doing it? Like, we didn't really know. And and a lot of people within the business and within the fans thought like his career really hung in a balance. Then he gets Jake into the band and they put out this incredible Bark at the Moon record with this particular song on it, which to me is one of my, it's definitely top 100 songs for sure. Probably for me, as I mentioned, it's my favorite Ozzy song, so it might be in my top 25 songs of all time.
Oh, nice.
But this really solidified him as a solo artist to continue to have a career, and it kind of went from there. So that's why I felt it's so important, and one of the songs that really defines heavy metal, because Ozzy, of course, is heavy metal. He's, you know, one of the godfathers. But this could have gone in 100 different ways, and it went in the direction of an amazing record, amazing song, and yeah, here we go. Ozzy is reestablished as this superstar and continued to be.
Yeah, it is really. And again, going back to the whole thing, and like it was more personal for me, but I didn't realize. Now that you're explaining that, I'm like, oh, that does make a lot of sense, because I could see there being some, you know, there's some questions about anybody. Anytime somebody breaks out in a solo gig, like we've seen it time and time again, somebody's like going out and doing okay, you're going to break away from this epic band. You know, not everybody is Ozzy Osbourne and not everybody is Dave Mustaine. Like there's a lot of guys you're like, oh yeah, he left, and then we don't hear from him again. So yeah, so I know it was very personal for me, because it was like definitely like entrenched Ozzy as a person that whose music I'm gonna enjoy for going on. But yeah, the whole thing with Randy, because like it was always, when I was growing up, it was always like, oh, like early Ozzy is like, oh, well, they had this guy named Randy Rhoads. Like, it's funny too, when you go back and you learn the history of rock and roll. And I found out that Randy Rhoads was in Quiet Riot. You're like, what? Like that? What is going on? Like that. And Kevin DuBrow is one of my favorite singers of all time. So you're like, oh my God, like learning so much about this. So I get it now. I'm getting chills thinking about this. Like this had to be like even more than like just me being an idiot kid about like, but like for people who were questioning whether Ozzy was going to go out there and still be the same. And for me, you know, I think it is important because he continued to be amazing, and it's all like his entire career. And it's not to say, but there's some other bands, I don't want to say who, but there's some other bands that when you lose a key person, you're like, it just wasn't quite the same. They're good, but wasn't quite the same.
That's normally the rule. Like this is an exception to the rule, because if you lose a singer, really singers are the worst one to lose, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of bands you can count on one hand that bands that became successful afterwards. You know, Black Sabbath, AC/DC. There's a few. Yeah. But normally, the guitar player who's the main guy, that's the other part. Like you lose. Like for example, Black Sabbath could never be Black Sabbath without Tony Iommi. Be, you know, so. You've got that, and even a band like Iron Maiden, when Adrian Smith left, like they struggled mightily until he came back too. So so losing that was a big proponent. The other thing that I find interesting doing this podcast is I'm talking to a lot of people who are a little bit younger than I am, and they come in with a little bit of a different perspective of what their favorite songs are because of when they came into that band. Like for your case, Ozzy Osbourne, this being the record you came in. Quick funny story about that was I interviewed my good friend Ron Capps, a funny car driver, right guy. Yeah, awesome dude, huge metalhead. And he wanted to talk about Judas Priest, Victim of Changes. I'm like, great. So I'm thinking he's talking about the studio version, which was what I wanted to talk about. Right. But then I get him on, and he's like, no, I'm talking about the live version. I'm like, oh, that's different, although it's the same difference. So it's interesting when people come in, and that's how their favorite things become favorites. So it makes sense that you would pick this too, because of when you started to come in with a Ozzy.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm like that quintessential 80s kids. It's funny because I'm trying to find my list too, because I know I might have stuck Mama I'm Coming Home on that, because when I did it, we were celebrating Ozzy's career, and you're like, in the moment, like I could see myself being a little bit more like sentimental of like, oh my God, that was the song he closed with. But I really love, like, I mean, obviously early Ozzy. It's still really, I mean, you're still going to lean towards,
of course,
the early Ozzy and Mr. Crowley and like a lot of those. Even, it was a thing too, like when Suicide Solution came out, like that was going to be the thing that Tipper Gore got music banned forever. And you're like, oh, and so like, as a rebellious person, you're like, well, I'm gonna dig in and really enjoy this song and really enjoy this music. So that was the era. And like I did see him, because it's funny because I saw him when I was younger and I was junior high and all that stuff, and going in and seeing like what would be considered the sweet spot for Ozzy. And you would go out and like there were still the rumors like he bit the head off a bat, or people would spit in a cup and pass it to him or whatever, which might or might not have happened.
He definitely bit the head off a bat, but he didn't realize it was a real bat.
Right. But like those kind of things. And then did see him when he was for out here in Southern California, K-Rock 106.7. It's more alternative. So if you ever listen, if you have Sirius XM, anybody who's on channel 33 was once a DJ on KROQ, but they did a festival every summer. It was called the Weenie Roast. I guess they probably still do it.
They still do.
They still do it. And one year they had Ozzy on it. And it was just like, it's so funny, like how much respect he has of like people who would be into, and I think some of the bands who were playing were like Limp Bizkit, Everclear was on the bill. This wasn't one of the Blink 182 years, but it was, but everybody was still stoked. Linkin Park might have been on there, but like Ozzy was like the third, like everybody left after Ozzy. Like, okay, we're good. Hey, here comes Tool. You're like, oh, great, good for them. We're leaving. I've seen it all, but even then, you still want a little bit more of a hardcore, like, but still, it's Ozzy. Like it's a legitimate. And also too, this is a funny thing too about Ozzy, which I really liked about him was as a kid who grew up watching professional wrestling, there was a tag team called the Road Warriors who, when they came to the WWE, were Legion of Doom. But when they were the Road Warriors, they used Iron Man. And it's just like, like there was like, for somebody to have so many iconic songs for two different things, really says something about himself.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's in pop culture now. It's everywhere. But funny you mentioned the wrestling thing, because I'm not a wrestling guy. I was when I was a kid, but there's so many current wrestlers that are massive metalheads. I mean,
oh yeah,
there's tons of them. One of my good friends is Chris Jericho, and I don't know anything about his wrestling career. We're just Iron Maiden nerds and metal nerds, but we text all the time about all that stuff. But yeah, there's probably 10 of them now. It's pretty insane. That whole world is becoming kind of metal. I was going to ask, so when was the first time you saw Ozzy? Was it at the Weenie Roast or was it before that?
No, it was before that. It was him and Motley Crue.
Okay, and that was the Jake E. Lee Bark of the Moon.
Yeah, Jake E. Lee. I'm pretty sure it was I think it might have been for support of Bark of the Moon, and this is like the first time.
I think so. I'm trying to remember because I saw that show too, and I remember seeing. In fact, I saw it at the forum, and I'll relay later the story that I was going to tell you about Jake. By the way, Jake, phenomenal guitar player, started in Rat. He was in Rat when they ended up being on the first Metal Massacre record as well.
Okay.
And Jake E. Lee was in Rat, but he had just left when we did the track for the Metal Massacre record. So I've known Jake for forever and ever, and just such a great guy. And one thing too about this song, he's such a great guitar player, and the solos in this song are phenomenal. And I think I know he had obviously huge shoes to fill with replacing Randy Rhoads. How do you do that? This iconic guitar player,
right?
So he came in, and I know he tried really, really hard to make those leads special. And that outro of this song might be one of my favorite leads of all time. That outro is like, it's just so incredible. And so hard to play. I don't play any instruments at all. I can't even strum a guitar.
Right.
But that outro is just so amazing. Every time I hear it, I go, man, that is mind blowing.
Yeah. You know what? And as somebody who like modestly played guitar, like I was not an accomplished guitar player or anything. Not that it was simple, but like one of the first songs that people like in my class who had a bunch of like as you would imagine, it was a bunch of metal kids who would you would learn like Crazy Train, and not that it was easy, but like in the solo, but like trying to play something like Bark at the Moon, you're like, Christ, I can't no. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, I'm not talented enough to do this. Like I can't. Not that it was. But it was like, oh God, like how do you have the dexterity for that? Like, that's one of the things that was always so amazing, which is probably why I try to start doing bass guitar so I could be a little bit more doom, 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 doom,
less strings.
Yeah, right. Like a little bit, but yeah, like the guitar on that it's so amazing. And obviously I think, in the lexicon of sports, like Crazy Train becomes this thing. And I know that I touched on this when I did my list on the After Hour. It does become something bigger than of itself. And I think that Crazy Train will elicit something because you associate it with like going to a Chargers game or whatever it is. And it's just such a great song. It's like, I wish Bark at the Moon, like, because musically and the way that the way that it goes is it really gets you fired up. I noticed this too because like I have 3 different lists for my kids for when they're practicing, when they're doing football practice or soccer to you Americans. Soccer and flag football practice is I have 3 different lists. One of them is the like Richard Blade approved. One of them is Ricky Rackman approved. So it's like more metal, but it's like Bark at the Moon's on that. And when you're listening to it musically, like, God, this song gets you charged up. And I know that it's not like, again, like for those of us, like everybody knows Crazy Train. It's like if you're going to Las Vegas and you're going to see like Spandex Nation or Arena or somebody, and they're just playing the hits of 80s bands, then like you will know Crazy Train. Bark of the Moon gets people who are like, I kind of know this music. Do I know this song? Like, who is this? Like, whose song is this? Like, it's like you don't know whose song this is, because I have friends that we go out, we play this game. Actually, we retired the game. I should have brought the belt out because I have a belt. We would play this game called what song is this? Recognize the song. And the first hour of this band, it's going to be Crazy Train, it's going to be Round and Round, and it's going to be like that. And then when you get to the later, like once you get past the 12 to 1 a.m. set is where I always brought it home, because you would be like, they would play Bark at the Moon, Lack of Communication, like a lot of those things where you're like, oh, lack of communication, like whose song is this? You're like, it's a Rat song, but whatever. They're not playing Shot at the Devil. They're playing Too Fast for Love. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff.
Deep tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. Deep track. It was funny. This band was funny because they would do that. They're like, okay, like we got rid of all the tourists here on Fremont. So if you're here for us right now. Let's get a little deep. You're like, yeah, go play Down Boys. Like, yeah, don't play Cherry Pie. Play Down Boys. Let's go.
What band was that?
Who? Down Boys?
No.
Oh, it was a band called Arena, and they gave way to another band called Spandex Nation, and neither one of them played. But no, they were so cool. So it was at the end of Fremont, in between the Golden Gate and what was then the Las Vegas Club, which then became a big hole in the ground, which is now Circa.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there we go. And like Arena was, those guys were, I think, Spandex Nation was cool. Like they were fun.
Spandex Nation. I didn't hear Arena, but what era of Vegas was that? Like what years?
So this would have been, so how old is my daughter? She was born in 2015. So this would have been between 2005 and 2015-ish.
That's probably why. That's right before I moved here. So I did spend a lot of time.
Okay. Yeah. Spandex Nation is great. I love Spandex Nation. Great guys. Really cool. But Arena was the one that was on before them in that same spot. I know that Spandex Nation now does Carnival Court or whatever.
There's a bunch of those. Spasmatics are the best one of that bunch, but
okay.
I've been still another story. By the way, you mentioned K-Rock. I wanted to talk about K-Rock for a real quick second. Those of you that don't know, K-Rock is this legendary radio station in Southern California that pretty much pioneered all the alternative stuff going all the way back to the 80s. But the funny thing about K-Rock was that they were secretly play a lot of metal. The first time when it came out, I ever heard Back in Black by AC/DC. K-Rock of all things played the whole album at like midnight, and they played a lot of Ozzy. They would play Metallica here and there. They would play some metal stuff on occasion, which is kind of what made them so cool, because they had all the great alternative stuff, but then they'd mix in like little things of other genres too. But yeah, legendary radio station. I'm glad it's still kind of living there.
At least it's living on Sirius in a way too. And it's funny because like Richard Blade's gonna play like Duran and players. Not that he's not cool. I love Richard.
He's a legend. He's a legend.
He's one of my favorite in the music. Might be because like he came to my high school one year. It was really cool. And it was funny. They were one of the first ones that played the Beastie Boys.
Yep.
Where you're like, oh my gosh, like we're playing Beastie. Like, okay, like this was cool. And then like the other stations and like Power 106 would play it instead. And then the year that Metallica did the Weenie Roast, they're like, we're going full-fledged Metallica, because you would hear, like you're saying, you would hear AC/DC or whatever. And it was usually a guy, Rodney on the Rock would do a lot of that stuff. It depended on like the time of the day. Like if you're listening, Richard Blade he was on after Kevin and Bean. So like we're getting
the Poor Man would play it.
Yeah, Poor Man. Yeah, because Poor Man was the late guy before he started doing Loveline. Before he created Loveline, he would be the one, and he would be like, you could call him up and be like, hey, play Back in Black or something like that, where it wasn't a normal in rotation K-Rock song, and he would do it because he was cool.
So you mentioned Metallica, the big news this week. Oh, by the way, we had Ricky Rackman on the podcast last week, by the way.
No way.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Ricky's great. So Metallica coming to Sphere here in Las Vegas. Are you excited about that? Are you going to try to make it out for one of those shows?
Yes, absolutely. It is. Because I saw U2 there. Well, I saw 3/4 of U2 there. Larry wasn't there. Yeah. Larry wasn't. So somebody asked me the other day, like, have you ever seen U2 in concert? And I said, no. And then one of the moms in the drop-off line's like, you went to their show when you were in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. I'm like, yeah, I saw 3/4 of them. Larry Mullen Jr. was not there. So no, I've never seen like, criminy. They're like, okay. And then somebody tried to stump me. They're like, you've never seen Blink 182. And I'm like, bro, I was going to Blink 182 shows when Scott Rayner was the drummer. I've seen every iteration of that band. So don't stump me on that. I've seen most versions of Motley Crue. So, but like stuff like that, a lot of combinations of Iron Maiden. Yeah. But with U2, like it was such an incredible experience. That is somebody who I like U2 enough. I was not upset when they gave us free, like so amazing. Like they gave you a free album and everybody hated it. I'm like, really? Like, remember when Lars was fighting you and he's like, don't take our music off Napster, leave all the money for us. And you're like, okay. But like U2's like, hey, no, you guys here, take our music. And they're like, no.
Well, to be fair to Lars, he didn't he didn't care about the Metallica money. He was worried about everybody else.
Was he?
100%. I mean, Lars is one of my really good friends. I've known him I've known him since he was 16. So
okay,
do the math there. I won't do it because it makes me really old. But anyway, so no, he was doing that all for everybody else. He didn't care about Metallica. He doesn't care about money or Metallica. He was doing that for all the other bands. And it proved out in the end, he was kind of right because it did kind of destroy the music business for a while, and now it's kind of reinvented itself, and it needed to, all that stuff needed to happen. So I'm glad it did, but I want to go down that rabbit.
You know what though? But I think you need to say it because like for the lay person like me, I'm like, why is like, you don't have enough money, but I get it.
No, he really, I mean, he probably didn't explain it in the best way possible back then. But no, he was absolutely doing it for everybody else. He didn't care about Metallica and Metallica's money. He's just worried, like, look, if there's a band out there that's surviving on that income and that's the only way they can make music, you take that away from them, they can. And that's kind of the way it became after a while. For us metalheads, the metalheads were really great. It kind of became a badge of honor to actually buy the music. And, a lot of bands just said, hey, look, you can get it all for free. That's fine. But we can't do what we do anymore. So anyway, it's all sorted out. It's fine.
Where weren't you there in the 90s explaining this? This would have saved everybody.
I was there, but I only have a small window back then. It's not, I'm not Metallica level. So, but it's all good now. And we did one thing real quick on that. We didn't like tell people it was bad. We said, how can we use this to our advantage? So I think we kind of got through that better than a lot of people, just because we weren't the big bad, record label saying, no, don't do this. So,
well, it's one of those things again, where you cause a class war between the people who should be united. Like we should be united against the record companies. Like, why are they getting all the money? Why aren't the artists getting, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you're 100% right. But the real big problem, the essence of why this happened was, and I remember this very well. Like, I would go buy a record. It could be $20 to buy a record back then.
Yeah.
And you couldn't hear it beforehand. You didn't know what was on it. You buy a record and there's one good song and the rest of it was just garbage. And that happened so often that people just got so sick of that. It's like, well, if I can get it for free, I'm not going to waste $20 for one stupid song. So what that did was it made the artists actually have to make good music and be aware that I can't just go through the motions and put out a record with one good song. Like, we have to really do this the right way. So in the long run, it really did it was really beneficial, strangely enough, for the music business. Just had to go through that little phase. Switching subject a bit real quickly, though, I did want to make a point that, you talked about Bark at the Moon not being played as much as sporting events. Well, I'm a big hockey guy, and a lot of, metal gets played at all the hockey games. And I'd say 10 to 12 of the DJs who do all the NHL teams, all huge metalheads. I've noticed in the last couple of years that Bark at the Moon is making this little comeback now. And,
good.
Places like Anaheim and Pittsburgh, Washington, Minnesota, a few of the places where they play a lot of metal. So maybe it'll catch on.
It doesn't surprise me about Anaheim. Now, I grew up a Kings fan, so I can't give the Ducks too much credit, but they do a really nice job because they play a lot of Social Distortion. They play a lot of Pennywise.
Yep.
What you would consider Orange County band. I think in the Offspring, I think would be in on that. I know they're not real, but I see Dexter at Don Ramone's all the time. So, or I've seen him there twice. So that to me is a lot. But it's like those, but they do a really nice job of playing those bands that are, connected to Orange County. And it wouldn't shock me if they started playing a little bit more Bark at the Moon, as they should. But I want to go back to Metallica at the Sphere. I do really love this idea because if there is the one thing that I really love about Metallica, and I do like Lars. I didn't see him, but he was in one of those documentaries when Iron Maiden was coming back, and he was backstage just geeking out over Iron Maiden. I'm like, what a cool guy. I'd be the same way.
He is.
So the one thing that I love about Metallica is that they do the nights, and they're like, hey, we're going to do, when you have a catalog as extensive as them, they're like, we're going to do 2 nights because we can do that. And it's not that to me. And like somebody like I'm like, I love that. And then you can kind of pick your night. Like for me, I might want to see more of the Cliff Burton era of Metallica. Nothing against Jason and all the other guys, but it's like I love, like if they did a show at anywhere where they're like, we're just gonna play Ride the Lightning front to back, I would be like, take my money, like whatever amount of money it costs me to get into the show, I will go see it. So I think that when they're gonna do the Sphere, as great as U2 did, and they did an amazing job.
Yes,
I think Metallica is gonna. I think they're going to beat it.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be better.
Yeah, real quick story on that. So when I went to the first, I saw U2 3 times out here. So the first night I went, so U2 and Metallica are very, very close, very, very close. They've been close for a long time. So I know Lars was at the opening Sphere with U2. So I texted him. I said, hey, I'm going to go see U2 tonight. He's like, oh man, you got to let me know what you think. I'm like, okay, sure. So after the show, he texted me like, what'd you think? I go, I need like at least a night to just process what I just saw, because it's just, I mean, I've seen 6,000 concerts, and this is nothing like you'll ever see ever.
Right.
So
right.
we were texting the next day about it, and he was so excited by the technology, and it was like a game changer and all these things. I could tell from that text that they're going to play here because they always wanted to.
Oh yeah, of course.
Different, that it isn't the same thing. We always harp on about the one thing, or one of the things they really want to do more than anything else is play the Super Bowl halftime.
Oh, and it's God,
and they can't.
Drives me like San Francisco once again blew an opportunity. I didn't mind Bad Bunny. I think it's cool, but like Metallica is associated with Los Angeles, not as much as San Francisco, but it wouldn't seem out of place.
No, anyone. And the thing is, I went to the Super Bowl here in Vegas, and I texted out or tweeted out like, hey, Metallica can't play here, but they just played 7 Metallica songs in the first half of the game. Yeah. But the reason is, Rock Nation's doing it, and they're not going to bring anything that's a rock and roll band in. And the other really big problem is Metallica's not going to play they're not going to lip sync. They'll never lip sync. And that's the whole NFL. You got to lip sync because there could be a technical issue or something, which is kind of nonsense. But who knows? Maybe one day, knock on wood, that may happen. But,
I know I've done lists like this, not necessarily for the after hour, but for other things where it's like Metallica is just like, for somebody who's lived on this earth over the last 70 years or whatever, like Metallica has touched your life in some way. It's getting to the point too of like, when we have those conversations like, hey, whoever you liked David Bowie. And I think like there's a lot of truth to that with Metallica too, because if nothing else, like there is something that you identify with, and you're like, whether it's Enter Sandman or some of the newer stuff or anything like that, and they keep going and they keep kicking ass. They never take shortcuts. And that's one of the things too about U2. And it doesn't shock me that these bands are close, because to me, like musically, they're not the same, but like as performers, I could see them having so much in common, because they will do so much to go out there and put on an amazing show. And the only reason that I'm saying is that Metallica is going to outdo U2 is that U2 was the first one up. Like they were the first, they're the ones who had to work out the kinks. And so now Metallica gets a little bit of an advantage of like, well, we kind of know, and we can kind of build off of what we've seen from other people, including the Eagles or whomever's been out there.
Yep.
And so they're gonna take it. So I wouldn't bet against U2 being like, no, we're gonna come back and we're gonna go over. Because like, if I'm not mistaken,
you're right.
We would be getting near like another anniversary. And I think the Joshua Tree is another, like that would, I know they did the tour for it and everything, but it's like, whenever the anniversary of the Joshua Tree, am I taking up too much of your time, Brad? I'm so sorry.
You're good. You're good. Good.
I know this isn't what I was brought in to talk about, but you know me by now.
But that's the way you go here. We talk about the song for all, then there's all sorts of other interesting angles to go. So you're all good. Yeah.
But I would love to see them do the Joshua Tree, like do that show again.
Please, that's my favorite U2 record. That would be amazing.
It is such a great, and the way, because you were worried about Red Hill Mining Company, that song.
Yeah.
Everybody was nervous, like, Bono, a little older now, can't hit that. But the way they did it with the Salvation Army band, like, oh, that was so good. Like, what a great job they did.
There are tricks that you can use now, like tuning down and other things where you don't have to hit those high notes as much, but it's going to be good. But the one last thing on the Metallica Sphere thing is that what's really interesting about it, which is going to make it unique, is they're doing the same thing that they've done, for the last couple of years, where it's like no repeats. So they're doing 2 shows. You buy 1 ticket, you get to go to both shows, and they're not going to repeat it. So for those of you that have not been to Sphere yet, it's all about the graphics, and the graphics all link up with the songs. So Metallica is going to do 2 separate shows with 2 different set lists. So the visuals for both shows are going to be completely different, which also is going to cost a fortune. But they can afford it. They have the money, so they'll be okay. But it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see what they do. I know a little bit about it. I don't want to know too much because I want to be, surprised when I go. But I know a little bit about the staging and stuff, and it's definitely going to be different from anybody you've seen there before. That's for sure.
What night are they playing Fight Fire with Fire?
I don't know. I can, if you go,
they're probably not playing it. They're not going to play it.
Oh, they'll play it. Oh,
that's a deep album. That's a deep.
They've been playing it. In fact, I saw them a year and a half ago in Dallas, the 2 shows. They played Fight Fire with Fire. They played a lot.
I've never seen that song live.
Oh, they played a lot. They played a lot.
Or I was at a concert where I was too late. No, no, I don't think
you let me know when you're going, and I'll try to make sure they play Fight Fire with Fire, or I'll tell you which night they are playing it.
Yeah, no. Just arrange that way. It's like another thing too with for the longest time, it took me forever to find a Maiden show. Oh God, Iron Maiden would be great at the Sphere.
I know.
They're another one. They're another one that would go all out and find a way. It took me.
Oh, sorry, real quick. They're interesting. They're my favorite band of all time, by the way. And I've oddly enough become really good friends with their manager, Rod Smallwood, which we'd have told 18-year myself that that's possible. I would have said you're crazy. But they're really kind of interesting about those sort of things. I've talked to them a little bit about it. They don't want to do it. They're like, no,
really?
We want to do it. It's not kind of our thing. We don't want to do. They don't want to do a residency sort of thing, which Metallica did the same thing. So maybe this will kind of break down that barrier a little bit because Metallica, we want to do it, but we don't want to do the residency thing. So we'll see. I'm going to see Iron Maiden this summer. So that absolutely is one of my questions.
Oh yeah.
So hey, what about Sphere? Now Metallica's doing it.
Are you going to go see them? Where are you going to see them? Because they're out here in September.
Yeah, I'm going to go see them. I'm definitely going to go to Toronto because I hate stadium shows, and they're playing the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. So I'm going to go to those 2 shows. but I'm probably going to go to one of the SoCal ones. I think it's at the soccer stadium, right?
Yeah, it's at the Bank of California.
Yeah, I'll probably go there because Anthrax is only playing the stadium shows, and they're really good friends of mine, so I want to go. So
that one's not really a stadium in like.
Yeah, it's not huge. It's like 30,000 or something.
It's actually really nice. I saw Blink 182 there. It's a great. I go on the floor, but it's a great spot. Like you'll enjoy it. We'll hook up for that one. But I was gonna say it took me forever for me to finally see The Prisoner in concert. Like, oh my God. I think I haven't done an Iron Maiden list, but I would think I'm gonna give it away here. I think Prisoner might actually be my favorite Iron Maiden song of all time.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, my favorite song of all time is "Hallowed Be Thy Name" by Iron Maiden. But
great song. I mean,
but there's in any of these sort of things, there's really no wrong thing. So before I let you go, though, I do, because I'm a long time fanatical clone. I've listened to Jim for 30 some odd years. I have to ask you, how did you get the gig for the After Hour?
You know what? A lot of luck, I think. It's one of the weird thing. Like, couple of years ago, we were Jim Rome started following me on Twitter. I'm like, what the
I know. Right. He did that to me too, and I was like, wait, what?
All right, like, okay, cool. But I've always been I've been a clone for. I remember his show. I did a podcast with him before I became the co-host of the After Hour. I did a show with him, and I talked about he didn't realize, like, he's like, geez, you go wait. I'm like, no, bro, like. Before we even started playing Up All Night, before that, back when Larry King took the last hour of your overnight show, when you were doing the Scrubs Saturday show, all this stuff, and like going and seeing him at Rubens and Charlie Brown's and all these places around. I remember one time I went up to him. When you won the huge call of the day, you got Farm Boy Funwear, and normally when you bought one, if you bought a Farm Boy Funwear, the crest was right here, but if you won it, it was on the right side. So the guy was like, "Oh, you won your shirt because it's on this side." I'm like, "Yeah." And so Jim was like, we're talking to him. He's like, "Hey," they're like, "Hey, Jim, like this, he did that huge call on the thing." And Jim's like, "Yeah, it was great. It was amazing, phenomenal." And it was cool. And I go, and so everybody had kind of left. And I go, bro, you get 1,000 calls a day. Like I appreciate you pretending to remember the call. It's totally cool. Like you don't have to do that. He's like, no. I'm like, Jim, like, it's fine. Like, we're good. But I'm like, but I appreciate the effort. So, a longer story, a couple of years ago, before they hired Will Blackman, I had talked to him about it. And that was back when his show was 9 to 12 during his normal time. And so it wasn't going to work out for me timing wise. And so it was like, okay, like, I really wish we could have made this happen. It would have been fun, but I got NFL Fantasy Live. It's just my main priority. So I got to do that. And then he did the T-Bob thing. And then I had done his podcast when T-Bob was leaving for Barstool. And so they were like, hey, you know what? And so Adam, behind the scenes, Adam reached out to me. He's like, hey, I know we've talked about this before. Would you still have interest? And I'm like, yeah, of course I would. And now, because of the show being on from noon to 3, this 3 o'clock hour is actually very, very conducive for my schedule at the time being. So, we did it. We had a great time, and it worked its way out.
You are phenomenal doing it, by the way. So great job nice, there. Dude. And you were great today. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on. Like, anytime. I really enjoyed this.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You can't leave because we have to upload it. And I have to tell you my Jakey Lee story.